Hey Steelers Nation, this is Joe Rockey from the Pittsburgh Syndicate. Today we're going to be talking about Cory Trice. As a little heads up for the Syndicate viewers, during the month of June, it is my intention to talk to the various foundations and causes that the players support. I think it's a good idea for a lot of reasons. The first is that getting more exposure to someone who's doing something great never hurts anyone. But it also gets a chance to see what these players are about, more so than just making their plays on Sunday. So what I ask of you, our listeners out there, is if you know anyone in a position of any of the various foundations or causes, please let me know about them so I can contact them and coordinate something. I would like to have as many of them represented as possible, like I said, because I think it's something that would be beneficial for everyone involved. And realistically, also during June, there's not a whole lot of new information about what's going to happen in the field. And I think that this will be a good thing for everyone. But nonetheless, as I said, today's episode is about Cory Trice. And I got a lot of feedback thrown at me yesterday. Hey, Joe, why didn't you bring him up in the conversation about slot corner? Well, there's a couple of reasons for that. The first is that Cory Trice is 6'3". And historically speaking, the Steelers do not put that tall of person at corner. Well, really, the NFL doesn't at all. But we've seen the NFL teams, particularly the Rams, be able to exploit that need by putting really good receivers at the slot, and then boom, Cooper Kupp puts up 1 billion yards. Now, granted, Cooper Kupp's not the tallest person in the world. The power tight end is also doing that as well. That was really, I guess, kind of revolutionized by Gronk. So the question then becomes, what is the requirement? What's the job description of what we believe the 2023 slot corner will be for the Pittsburgh Steelers, not looking at the NFL overall? So historically, under Tomlin, the slot corner has been a thumper. Someone who's going to come in, give these great blitzes off the edge, and then kind of not really care about coverage. Well, the way the rest of this team is built, with the exception of the middle linebacker, all of this roster can cover. Like, even TJ, it's a great edge rusher, but he's not bad in coverage. So, do we want to put a weak cover spot at corner? Do we want to put another short guy there that gets exploited over the top? Do we want to have someone who's poor in coverage where Minka essentially has to babysit and double coverage all the time? This is the general job description question we have with the Steelers, and what leads me to Cory Trice. So, Cory Trice obviously is a tremendous value that fell to us in the 7th round. But we have to keep some things in perspective. His ceiling is not equal to Porter's. Yes, great find, great value. You know, some reports have him late 3rd round, some have him 4th, 5th. It's kind of scattered all over the place. The bottom line is very tall, decent speed, not world-beating speed like Porter, but decent speed, very good eyes and jumping on balls, very good at press, which are all things that are incredibly vital. But the difference is he was an outside corner at Purdue. You watch almost all of his tape, you are going to see him lined up on the outside. And when we're talking about press man in particularly, when you're playing outside corner and you're pressing someone, the goal is to get him into the sideline. And the reason for that is the sideline is an automatic incomplete pass. So by getting him closer and tighter to the sideline, you are inherently giving yourself better odds every single snap that you do that. And for those that don't believe me, look at Trubisky trying to throw the ball to George Pickens. They landed out of bounds all the time. So that's the goal and the mindset of the outside corner and press coverage. When you're on the inside in the slot position, if you try to cheat one direction or the other, for instance, I'm cheating to force you in the sideline, well, we're in the middle of the field, so I can't get you there anyway. But if I'm trying to cheat one direction, you can just zip right by me on the other side, And then next thing I know, you're open for 10 yards and there's nothing anyone can do about it. You're open in the middle of the field on a very easy throw. Being a press slot guy is one of the hardest things that no one considers playing defense. So I bring all of this up to saying that he has the starting point. He at least knows how to press. There's a lot of guys that no, they just can't do that well at all. So he has a great foundational starting point. Realistically, does he have the quick left to right movement? Well, this is where I believe he had a very bad advice given to him going into the combine. So we already know that he was injured and has medical risk coming at him. But for the entire duration of the combine, he did every single test that was requested of him, with the exception of two. The exact same two Joey Porter didn't do for that record, which was the cone drill and the shuttle. The reason those two are relevant, especially for your taller corners, is they show your agility and your quickness in space. How quickly can you go one direction, stop, and go another? That's literally what the shuttle is. So the question is, by him refusing to show, him being both Porter and Trice in this case, refusing to show their agility, how many teams just said no? Like, I don't want to waste a pick on a guy who's at injury risk and unwilling to show it. Because you could make an argument that the reason you didn't want to show the corner your agility is because you can't do it. And if you don't have lateral movement, it's very hard, if not impossible, to play in the middle of the field. It's a very hard position to play, slot corner. And when we see this, my question is, which we'll never know, how many teams just flat out took Cory Trice off their board? And as a result, is his slip as surprising as possible? Because if only 12 teams were even going to consider him, well, then slipping to the 7th round is much, much easier. And this gets into the Steelers capitalizing on injured players, as we discussed earlier on the Darnell Washington episode. Same thing's true here. Now, all of this to get to, how does this help us in week one, Joe? What's going on in week one? So, as we outlined yesterday, major competition for all of the corner spots that doesn't have Patrick Peterson in it. So, outside corners up for grab. We got Levi Wallace. We got, obviously, Joey Porter Jr., Witherspoon, all in the hunt. I don't really think that Trice is going to have a chance to win that out, just for the simple fact that we look at the three that are there. Joey Porter, second pick, basically a first-round pick. Witherspoon, before he got here, all-pro level. Levi Wallace, consistently above average throughout his career. So I do believe that's unrealistic to think that Trice is going to win that starting corner spot. But now, that doesn't mean he's useless by any stretch. The guy's 6'3" and ran sub 4'5". So he has the ability to see and read and react downfield. That's what safeties do. That's essentially the definition of KZ. And where I think Trice really has potential to blossom on this team is to essentially be the secondary jack of all trades man. And the reason that this is important is because really we only have three safeties. We have Minka, KZ, and Lorenzo Neal. Lorenzo Neal's probably basically playing linebacker all year. So that even takes your less down one more. So the pathway for Cory Trice to get on the field might actually be easier saying, I'm going to back up KZ, and I'm just going to try to dive all I can into the slot. I think it's going to be harder to get that starting slot spot because between the trio of Levi Wallace, Porter, and Witherspoon, obviously one of them isn't going to win the start. Two of them aren't going to win the starting job. The hope is that they're still viable prospects. You know, Witherspoon's health, Porter's grabbiness doesn't keep them from being on the field altogether. So assuming that they're capable, one of those two should be your slot. That trio should cover your slot of Wallace, Porter, Witherspoon, one of them outside, other two as slots. Trice, again, great potential, great everything. I don't see him winning that out, again, unless Witherspoon is hurt. But playing the center field role is a very potential gift for him. Because he had shown in college that he was decent at deep quarters and deep thirds. Basically cover 3 when you see the corner run straight back. That's what I mean by deep thirds. And that's where he was. You look at his highlights, you see a couple interceptions there. A couple of people ragged him on it, saying that he didn't have quick enough reaction time to it. That's not what I saw. I saw very good instincts, and there were times that he just made the wrong choice, which I don't dog someone for making a decision and it not being right. What I believe is the bigger problem is not knowing what you're seeing and deer in the headlights freezing and not committing. That's my bigger problem when I'm looking at secondary prospects, especially when we're playing in the back end zone coverage. You know, guy goes all in. He thinks that this is the lead guy. He's their main guy. We're going to go cover him over here. I have no fault with you taking the step that way. And then when the ball's in the air, being quick enough to recover to try to get back to him. You know, there are so many speedy or long safety men that have gotten yelled at for this, even though they weren't wrong. For a big flashback for Steelers Nation here, that happened to Carnell Lake a lot. The guy made a decision and basically we ended up covering 2 players on the same play. And that's when I look at the Purdue tape of Trice. Because the other thing that's very evident watching the Purdue tape was that he's the only real guy back there. And if you're an opposing quarterback, you don't want to throw the ball at their best corner. Everyone knows that. That's part of why Joey Porter was so attractive. People stopped throwing at him. College football told you, dude's really good. Similarly happened with Trice. Now, that being said, he was hurt at the last year, so you didn't really get a full evaluation of it. But when the guy was healthy, people were avoiding him. And that's where you get into a little bit of playing like Dion in his tape, where people were saying that he did bad at zone coverage. He was, at sometimes, baiting people to throw on his side of the field. And when it worked, it was a pick. I mean, this guy has good hands. He has the ability to rip out screen passes. And in some cases, he kept the ball himself. I believe against Penn State, that was who it was. Definitely brought down the screen tackler when it wasn't. Maybe it was Indiana was the interception. Either way, point being, it's why you don't throw a screen pass into press coverage. The guy gets hit immediately or the ball gets a turnover. So, does I think that Cory Trice has a potential? Yes. I think that he's going to have to do a circumnavigational route to become a starter, though, because there's not an easy direct line to him at his native position in college, which was outside corner. Is he capable of doing it? That's going to be one of the great stories we're going to follow during minicamp and training camp, which, by the way, rookie minicamp starts May 12th. So when we look at Trice, I think he's got a world of potential. I think it'd be a little out of place to say his potential is in the same realm as the first 5 picks, because I think that those guys are in a category of their own. But I'm also not saying I don't think he's making the team or that he's useless. You know, he brings a lot to the table. And when we start talking about, does he have value on special teams? Yeah. Ran a sub 4.5. That's how you cover people. You get down there fast. He is physical enough. You can't be a press coverage guy if you're not willing to put your hands on someone. And at the end of the day, that's pretty much what you do on punt coverage. You hit someone hard, you run away, and then you go tackle a guy. I see him as a great candidate for that, which if he becomes one of the core special teamers, he's now getting a hat every single game. And it takes me back to some of the other special teams players that Steelers Nation might remember, that because they were on the field and people getting hurt around them, they got a much bigger share of normal playing time. Ray was a great example of that. He was on the field for a ton of offensive snaps when he wasn't even the 6th best receiver on the team, but because they only give hats to 4 receivers, some games they give to 5, if the first 2 go down, someone's got to play the position, and at least he knows what it is. And this is a possibility for Trice. You know, boom. I'm a jack of all trades. I can do all of the secondary positions and probably not be the immediate better than in day one, but that doesn't mean he doesn't find himself a niche that can last. And when we look at the long-term answers of the Steelers and who's currently under contract and for how long, there is a possibility that we're going to need some of these long-term answers filled, and have answers already on the roster preparing it makes sense. So we look at Wallace and Witherspoon, final years of their deal. Peterson, he's already getting up there in age. We don't know how much he's got in the tank. Again, not seeing him as a Steeler, it's going to be hard to gauge that, how he fits in our system. But Hall of Famers tend to work regardless of where they're at. All this to say, I think there's a big future for Trice. If I had to put money on it right now, he's probably getting a hat on Sunday, being one of the 45, predominantly starting as a core special teamer. Because with the exception of field goal block, I don't see a special teams where he will not be able to find a niche on the field. Punt coverage, absolutely. He can be a press gunner blocker on the outside for punt return. Kick return, obviously. He's got the speed to come down and do it. Kick return, maybe. He's the up back. He's probably less likely to get the nod for that, but you could still use him. I mean, the guy is not afraid of hitting people. I mean, that's one of the things that comes with press coverage. And you see him in tape coming up and laying lumber on someone, especially at the line of scrimmage. A little bit lesser as they're coming out with a head of speed. But again, people stopped playing at him once he became established at Purdue. And again, there was no reason not to. So when we look at this decision to draft Cory Trice, obviously I'm 100% on the bus with it. I do think that he's a capable player. I think that he's one of these guys that is going to quietly develop in the background here. And then it's going to be, you know, week 16 or something, someone goes down and boom, he's picking off a jump ball to Higgins. That's the kind of thing that I can see him do. Because you can get bigger in the NFL in terms of muscular. You don't get taller. And he has the height profile to match those two boys over in Cincinnati. So again, I love the pick. I love him as a future potential. It all comes down to how healthy are we week one, and why did we not want to do the agility drills? Is there a glaring red flag? Or is this, all right, you were just trying to protect yourself? Either way, if it's a glaring red flag and we missed it, well, it's a 7th round pick. No one's going to get yelled at for that. But if it was, we can do this, and we just didn't think we'd be able to do it on the combine day, that's a different discussion ever. Because knees take time to heal, and the quick cutting is sometimes the slowest thing to come back. So Steelers Nation, I hope that you guys enjoyed the episode here on Cory Trice. Again, if you have any connection or know any contact person at any of the Steelers players, foundations, or causes, please reach out to me. You can do it through me at my website, which is probably the easiest way. That's elitebusinessconversations.com. You can see it right up here. The other way you can do it is just leave it in the comments. Although, for anonymity's sake, it might be easier just to do it through the website, which, again, right here at Elite Business Conversations, because I really do want to give spotlights on what these foundations are. Because as a Steelers fan my whole life, aside from seeing Cam Hayward on commercial with Edgar Schneider and knowing it has something to do with kids, I'm not really sure what the Hayward house is all about. So that's just an example of all of them. So like the rest of them, there's many of them I don't even have an idea they exist. So I want to help with that. I want to help, you know, and bring Steelers Nation together. Steelers Nation, let's do this. If you guys have contacts with any of them, please let me know. I would love to talk to you. And again, Steelers now, Steelers always. Here we go, Steelers. Here we go.